Hi everyone, good morning, good afternoon. So obviously we've still got a tiny bit of risk here. Like they could easily move this down off highs, like down to like that 9899, but I was wondering if they hold like an intermediate point, if they're trying to set it up to get to the channel instead. Opening at 64.16 is like right in the middle of that neutral, bull zone, which I mentioned on the report and I mentioned on yesterday's stream. They could easily do something like that if they want to kind of keep this in between. I'm not sharing it yet. Just wait for a few more people. So it is kind of a tough spot here because if they want to hold here, then it implies that there could be odds to get to that channel area like 3.5, 3.6. And technically they could still afford to go a tiny bit lower, like maybe closer to like 0.2, 0.3. But if they really want to just push this back, they would take it to that 9899 spot, which is still fine. It just, the reason I'd prefer not to is it won't really imply that they can get it out of the zone. Does that make sense? Like at least for today's session. TLRY is approaching this pretty big spot here. Let's probably set this to 8, 4, 7 or something. So if you remembered what I said on yesterday's stream, I said that there's a lot of confluence in this bull neutral area, which is exactly what played out today. A lot of confluence in this range right here. They opened at 64.16, I think, this morning, right? These were the calculated ranges from last week, the 19, 20.5, 17.25, 16, and I think they opened at exactly that 16.25 spot today. Also, the idea is if they held the bull neutral area overnight, that they could clear the top of the zone, like above 3.2. They didn't. So you guys can see here that they breached back down to like 0.8. Do you see this? Which is not bad, but this definitely reduced the odds a little bit. Like, this range in here is essentially what caused them to stop overnight back here. Do you see this? From getting above 3.3. Let me know if this makes sense. Like if they would have held overnight above here, let's say, like above 14, 15, 16, I think that there could have been an odd for them to try getting out of the zone. So this is where the first reduction came in from last night. This is also what kept us at, not really risk, but, you know, just tighter range for real time. They then came back and took it out a little bit lower back here down to our 07 spot. Which isn't bad, but again, these are all kind of the ranges that we're looking for. They should be around like that 3.9, 3.8. Do you see what I'm saying? In terms of those reductions in range. Everyone's on the same page? And 08's not bad. Like, holding 08 is still good. 07, 08 are still really good spots. But we would have had more constructive price action, a clear of the top of the zone above 3.3, 3.4, and probably some channel some channel test here if they would have sustained a little bit higher. And this is kind of still the risk that we face with these types of ranges. Back to 9.9. Okay, back to 9.8. Do you see what I'm saying? Because we would have preferred to have like held above here, 15, 14, 75, 14.50. So there still is some room to downside here, but which really would just end up being like the 33 points in range from highs, I think. Yes. Okay. Currently they're hitting at like 27.75, and then from opening range they're just holding above 13 points. Not by much, but I think it's at 12.5. So it is a tighter spot here. I think the 17-point ratio is also aligned with that 9.9. So there's a lot of confluence with that 63.98, but like I was saying, if they, oh wow, look at that stick. If they hold here, that's why I try to long off 64.04, 05 area, because it's kind of like the midpoint breach that I was explaining in the Discord. That's a huge stick right there. Do you guys see that? I was trying to explain to Brendan, this is what I was saying. I said, but it's still a 13-point hold that could leave room for a 32, 33-point upside, because calculated downside is around 63.98, but if they want to move it back up, they won't take it down from there. They'd leave it within that 26 to 29-point range, and then they'd probably just try pinning OR close back to 64.22, see if they can get a better session pin. That was the plan to enter the channel overnight. Does that logic make sense, Brendan, that I was talking about? So it'd basically be them saving, instead of taking down this range and putting us at that risk, if they want to try getting into the channel, instead of doing this, okay, like the 6, 7, 8 points, because we had room to 9.3, 9.6 off the report, right? Instead of doing something like that, like you see that risk to 9.6, they could use it for the upside to get us to these areas here. Or like even as little as like if they hold 9.9, 9.8, that could maybe get us some moves to 3.6. It was kind of a weird way of looking at it, but it did make sense. It was kind of a very tough decision to make off there because I knew that we could afford still 5 points down, but from an opening approach, like the net neutral area makes more sense. Because like we opened in the bull zone but lower bull zone. We opened in the bull neutral zone, not the neutral zone, right? So we're kind of, how do I explain it? You know how they opened at 64.22 versus 64.28, 64.29? That's the theme of the week. Do you see it? It's about 5 to 6 points offset, right? And then if we would have preferred to have opened closer to 64.30, 31, you can look at it from like an 8-point offset, right? 64.33 plus, or like 64.35, which would have been ideal, is like a 12 to 13-point offset, which could be the differential in the holding points because they're holding 12.5 off open. Does that make sense? Like, so 16 right here, okay, this is a 12.5-point hold, right? Where they actually opened the session at 64.22. It's not bad. It's not great. We would have preferred, obviously, them to open the real-time session or like the session above like 3.3, 3.5. Do you see what I'm saying? This kind of a hold right here is the same thing as the differential between where we would have preferred to open. So if they try holding these ranges here, it could imply that they could still try getting it back there. That was the whole sustain slightly higher to take us higher that I put on the report and I mentioned on yesterday's stream. So this week could be kind of hard to get entry points because they might not be exact off like 33, 34 point metrics. And it's mostly based off where they opened. So even like them opening at 2.2 versus 2.9, that's 6.5 points, right? That would probably be the net differential here, right? Which is also probably the same thing as being like a 34-point hold right here. Does that make sense? That's the best way I can explain it. That's why I went live, because I'm like, this is going to be kind of hard to explain. Because it's not that they can't take it to 9.9, it's that they have a slight odd of trying to offset that. And offsetting it would be in this area right here. But there definitely is still risk. We'll see what they do. I did tomorrow's expiration just in case. Tilray broke Oh, they did. Till I broke that 8.5 spot here. Not really much volume. This is a pretty big break on this because on the 12-day, this flips over on the 19th, so today would be the midpoint flip. And it's basically mirroring that past reversal bar. So the way that you can think about this is it basically broke the top of the range at the 50% time interval. Does that make sense? This is half the time interval here from the 1st to the 19th is today. This was the point of turnaround, and this runs until the 19th. This is 50% of the time. So it's breaking the top range on that structure there, okay, like right here. So if they can clear it above there, this could easily get a full continuation. I was looking at maybe even like the 16-day just because there's some confluence here, and that would be like a break to like $1.03, $1.11 or so. You know, a pretty big spot to break right here in this area. And you can kind of see how the structure is now forming off this. Right, so next area to watch is around 8788. If anyone's trading that. This one looked good too. The MOS, not MOSS, it was MSOS, right? Didn't look bad either. Where was that? Here. And we said set an alert on this one for 478. That's the big spot to break on that. So do you see how it's holding a tight line here, guys, like in this area? This is a really weird way of looking at it, but it's kind of like a mid-neutral hold. It's the same thing. It's like 02, 03, 04, like they're not bad, they're not great. This is also the same thing as like the 2.75 to 3-point ratio off these areas. Does that make sense? Off 05, off 06. Do you know what I mean? Like in terms of those offsets. Which is the same thing as them opening at, you know, 16.25 area, right? Like kind of like mid-zone. Or like them opening at 2.2 versus like that 2.5 close. Let me know if this makes sense to you guys. It is pretty important that this makes sense because it's kind of the same thing as that 2.75 to 3.5 offset here, where they kind of keep it in between, and it's the same theme that keeps carrying over. Like them closing here versus here. Okay, do you see that? It could be the same thing as them, instead of holding 05, 06, maybe they breach just slightly beneath, okay? Let me know if this makes sense. That's kind of the theme that they started for the week. And to me, it makes sense. So based on the theme of the week, it's within range. Based on where they open the real-time session today, this would make sense. Because that would be like the same thing as like stalling, you know, 64.19, 64.20, which would be the entry into the bull zone. But then you're still holding this bear neutral zone. And then from like the actual range and lows that we could afford to take, which is closer to here, like this would breach. Like taking it all the way back down here would actually take out that whole range. We don't want to take out the whole range because then it's going to decrease our odds of actually getting the range on the upside. That's the best way I can explain this. Like from resetting the shitty open that we had. So if they can save that range on the downside, they could give it to us on the upside. So we want to be a little bit selfish and keep that 5 to 8 points. Okay? So we can try recycling it up. That was the theme from the report. And I did talk about it yesterday on the stream. This would be a very good example of that if they actually end up holding here. Where's Still did not. Yeah, well, there's an hour and a half left in the session. And if they want to pin us at OR, there isn't that much room, unfortunately. I hate this reset of, like, my stuff. It's so annoying. Like, I can't get into any of my accounts. I'm never switching phones again, I swear. I spent like an hour doing this yesterday. View rate's kind of down lately. I don't know why. So the overhead's definitely going to be that 64, 10, 12, kind of like the mid neutral points here. I'd say probably the median point between the opening range and this low range here. So let me just clear this so it's easier to see. We had some pretty good odds at around 238, 243. Someone wants to write those down. Let me just rotate this. So you see that 50% mark? It's kind of like the 50% range between opening range and then that calculated low. So let's see why. Yeah, we had an odd at 38 too. 38, sorry, is what I said. 3-8, and then the next odd here was around, I'm pretty sure 4-3. Might have been 4-1, but I think it was 4-3. In terms of that 64-10 retest. So it would be better if they could try here at 3-8, 3-9. 3-8 definitely looks like it's trying. See if there's any follow through on that stick. These next few minutes are definitely important because we do want to try clearing here before 3 to at least try getting back to opening range before 3. Like I would like to get back to 64-16 to at least give us odds of getting back to 64-22. Otherwise, that's going to really limit the range and keep us at risk this afternoon. So first condition is to try getting above that 10 mark pretty soon here. There were some odds just after that 238. That's kind of the window. So, I mean, even if they don't break at 38, kind of within this window range here, I don't really want this to extend much more than 4-3 though. There's usually odds at 4-8, 5-50, 5-4, but I feel like to break 10, that's pushing it a little bit. Okay, so we want to try getting some structural breaks here in the next 2 to 3 minutes. Midpoint is around that 40-41. As long as it does it by the 4-3 mark, I think then we're probably fine. But do you see how and why that area's the overhead, 64.10. That's your midpoint between opening range and this calculated low. So that's implying that they want to take it back to OR and potentially back to session open. And hopefully overnight take it to the channel. I don't think we have to do that in real time today, but I do want to get it out of the neutral zone. I don't really want to keep it in this yellow box here. What do you guys think? Should we do a poll? Clear 64.10, 64.12 area by 2:43 p.m. What do you guys think? I put up a poll. So 4-1 was the midpoint here. They're kind of stalling off the 40 stick. Because if they don't break during this period, it means that they'll likely come back and take out that low. That's the reason why this area is so important, because this is where volatility could start to increase. You can see the structure breakdown at 4-1. So unless they try to immediately negate off like the 4-2, 4-3 sticks like this, they could easily come back and take out this range here like that. That's why I didn't really want to wait till 248, 250. I feel like that's a little too long for them to break this overhead here, especially because volatility could start to increase right now. All right, let's see. Oh, Tilray actually is getting that break to 8.7. I should have set the alert on that. What was that level? 8.7. I'll just put it to 8.7. Yeah, it basically just reduces the range, because if they end up holding here and then retracing up, it delays it a little bit till this period, but you can kind of see how the risk starts to increase. And it's definitely not a coincidence that they left it stuck here for... This has already been an hour, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it has. And this is half that range. Low a day being retested here right at that 243 mark. Do you guys see the importance of that time frame? Because if they weren't going to break, they were going to break down range. How much range is that? That was perfect timing on that. And this would give us an idea if they would have taken it back to OR had they cleared back in here. It was a total of 5.5 points. 5.5 points, I'm pretty sure, would have given us a potential retest of that 15 and 16 spot. So careful, there could be some increase in volatility here, because this isn't really the ideal area to stall or time. So just be cautious of that. Because now they could take it down to that 0.2, and we still have that risk of 9.9, 9.8, unfortunately. Do you guys cover the long? This is why I was saying I'd be a little bit cautious here because we don't want it past 4.3. The volatility would be way too high. That's the cutoff. And this is why. Look at the stick that followed after 4.3. That's the biggest downside stick we've had this afternoon. Isn't that crazy? Look at this range in this stick, 6.75 points. Yeah, so overall range right here, they could try turning it around by the 4.8 mark, don't get me wrong, especially off here. That's 13 points in range total. Do you see how that could have taken you back to 2.2, your weekly open? Look at this. This whole range right here, guys, on this downside would have taken you right back to here. That's why I had a sell order set right at that low of day mark, because I knew that there's some odds that if they cleared in time at like 240, 41, they could have had really good sticks between like 4.3, 4.4, taking you back to 16, even 22, if they wanted to recycle the range up, but unfortunately they didn't. So where did they stall? 63.96. Damn, they did trigger 9.6. 9.6 is off the weekly report, guys. That was our big support range between 9.3 and 9.6. So off today's open, I think they're still holding a 22-point range. Off the highs, I'm pretty sure that's 35 points. So they did break just beneath that 20 or 34-point ratio, but still closed above it on an open to close ratio, meaning they could try sweeping it here. What do you guys think? You think they sweep this back up? So if they're going to sweep up here, they have to take it back to 10, like immediately. So this is where the sweep could happen between 4.5 and that 4.8 and 50 window. Just quickly, yes or no, because I'm not going to do a poll. If they're going to sweep it here and protect this, because they did breach, this is where the sweep would occur. And then that's where you'd get that extension or delay, because we still have until just before 3, but I didn't want to wait until then because I knew that the risk was high because they still had room for downside to 9.6 and 9.9. So 9.6, 25 hold here so far. Nice, Brendan. That's a nice short. So if they're going to try to retract this, I would say they'd have to take out this 0375 off that 4.8 stick and probably retest 10 between that 4.8 and 50 window. That was pretty insane timing on that, though. You have to admit. Especially knowing to cut that. What alert was that? Tilray? Oh, it did. TLRY testing that 8737 here. Where is... That's a big spot right here on this, if they can clear that. ES breaking back over that 6403.75 here, just on time at 248. See if they have enough strength to push this back basically to these ranges here, at least 0775, 08 during this time period. It doesn't really change anything, but it does help the dynamics a little bit. Okay, so minimum here by here. Ideally, you want to try getting back to here. Actually, that's not even ideal. That's just at a minimum. Ideally, technically, you'd want to get back to here. But this kind of breakdown implied back to 6422, guys. Do you understand that concept or not really? So this period of time had odds for range. Okay. The ranges that were implied would have taken you back to OR 6416, 6422. Do you see what I'm saying? Where did they start the weekly session? Around 2.2, right? So technically speaking, if they can sweep down off this low, they could get it back there, right? From the 4.3 stick. Oh, actually something else I want to ask you guys. This is where they could get it back to that 15, 16 spot. Why could this be invalidated? Even though they breached 34 points. Why could this be invalidated? They breached 34 points by a point. Why could it be invalidated? Let's hear what you guys have to say. Why could that be invalidated? Hurry, 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 because there's only like 2-3 minutes left. Why could this be invalidated? They broke 34 points, which technically means you sometimes can go down another, like to 39, 44 point ratios, right? Which is the bottom of the zone, right? Or even a 66 point ratio. Why could it be invalidated though? Two things. One of them I already told you, but try to answer that. Why could this be invalidated for a continuation on the downside? Come on, guys. We need some participation here, otherwise it defeats the whole purpose. Why could that be invalidated? It was a minute too late, right? So if that happened at 4-3, then I'd be like, oh, that's, you know. So they gave it enough time to retrace, okay? Because there's no odds until around 2:48, 2:50, 2:54, 3 o'clock, right? Whereas if they broke down fully at 4-4, then that would have been bad. Did they take out the lows though at 4-3? They did, right? By 0.25. So that still could keep us at risk for continuation during this period here. So they took out lows, but did that have as much substance as like 64.99, 63.99, 63.96? At 63.0250? No, right? So two things that they did that could invalidate continuation down is one, it was a minute too late on that extension for the downside ratios to 9699. Although they did take out the low, so this still technically can be a valid short continuation. Two, they closed above. So even though they breached below, they still closed above a 33 point ratio from here. 33, 34 points. How high though would the pressure be to retract back at least to that 64.10 spot here to avoid having that continuation on the downside? I do think this is going to get to that 110, 114 spot. Anyone take those calls on that? The dollar calls got swept on that, which I know seems kind of stupid, but they were getting volume. I shared that earlier. I just bought stock, but yeah, pretty high pressure now to get back over there. Like I said, even if they bring it back to 07, 08, it's not bad. I don't think that that's quite enough though to to take away the risk. And the reason I'm saying that's not bad is because now from opening range and this current low, you're closer to the 07 area for some mid. Do you see what I'm saying? Like this area here, 06, 07, technically, so far they're stalling there at 0625. So the pressure is pretty high. Even this reduction stick at 5.3, right? So 5.4 is the flip, but this reduction stick here, 2.25 points, that could have definitely taken you back at least over 06, 07 here. So a little bit of risk. There were some odds just after 3 as well, but I think at least getting back over 07, 08 before 3 is probably better. We do have little to no catalyst. A lot of it's just breaking news lately. So How much time is left here? Okay, 5-4 retracted, but not completely over that 06. 25, 06, 25 right now is that 50% range. Let's see if they can get some movement here in the next 2 to 3 minutes. Well, we did hit our 9-6 target though. 9-6 is the big spot from the report. So, I mean, it is what it is. But is this going to make it a little bit harder for us now to get to the channel, you think? Based on the fact that they did take it to 9-6? It's not that it completely negates odds. It's just that now the pressure gets a lot harder because even if you break 34 points, you're still at the top of the channel. So we'd have to start moving in like those 44-point ratios, basically. Yeah, we did. We tested 3-2 and we tested 9-6. So, but it would have been nice if they would have just given us this range on upside instead. But whatever. It was worth the try. At least we knew the cutoff time, which was exactly 2:43. Not many people have that advantage in trading. So at least we have the advantage of knowing the exact time it has to break by to take on that kind of risk. All right. I kind of marked this 5-6 here because I feel like if there's not really any structural breaks in these next 2 minutes, and it's going to be pretty hard for them to get back over this before 3. We just want to try breaking at least this 0625 and maybe try getting back to like this 0775, I think, at this point. Back over 10 would have been more ideal, but so far this isn't looking super likely. But we'll see. They are keeping that risk on, which we already know that they still have some room to the bottom of the zone, some room down to here, because I think from opening range we're still within, like this is the 44-point ratio from highs, right? Is the bottom of the zone at 8.7? That's the 44-point range, by the way, is the bottom of the zone. And then from where they actually opened us today at 16, hold on, 16.64, 16.25. We've hit 20, not even 22 points. So this is where the 9-3 could come into play. Do you see that? 9-3, 9-4. And then if they want to actually give full range off today's open, that's where they trigger like the 8-1, 8-2. I would prefer to avoid that though. I really don't want them to take this back to core ranges before CPI tomorrow. Like staying zone bound is the best case scenario. Do you guys agree? Where are you almost always trading before a release? Don't get this wrong. 5-8 stick breaks here. See if they can, oh, well, they're at least getting some movement here before 3. Yeah, usually zones are channels, so maybe, I guess. Based on this structure, there were some odds for that 259, so like right here and 3 o'clock. I think 3 o'clock could be some range here. Nice stick back to 0775. That's exactly where we wanted this to go. We'll see if they can give us the breaks to 64.10. I figured they couldn't do it before 3 based on how these points moved here, but there's definitely some odds that they could do it maybe after 3. So like they already reduced us by 3.25 in this period here, which is probably where they're stuck. Yep, this is exactly where they're stuck. So they had some odds of breaking 10 and getting us to 1075 and 11. 259 getting some volatility here. I would like them to try holding that 06, 0625. They held 0625 like final second. All right, we'll see if they get some movement here at 3. There were some odds just after 3. I think it was 305, 304. So we can watch the first 5 minutes here after 3 o'clock, but I think getting it to 0625, 0775 is not bad. That's still 50 to 61% of the range. So it's not awful, but it's still not ideal to take away the downside risk for the session here. Based on the range that they reduced, there's odds of 64, 10, 75 and 64, 11. So that means that those are the levels they have to break, you guys, when they come back and test here. Like if they come back and break here, you guys listening? We'd want them to try getting some breaking points of, so it doesn't even necessarily have to break this point. It just has to break closer to like the 11 mark, like right here. And there were some odds a little bit after 3. Anyway, okay, I'm gonna grab some water. Wow, TLRY is really getting a nice move here. ACB got a really good break too, if anyone took that. I was targeting that 545 on this today. I do think it could get there. Like, it's moving pretty quick. And this one, most of these are basically negating a lot of their 3 to 6 month ranges, but I really like the setup on TLRY. There's volume here too on this. A lot of volume too, actually. Can someone record these here? Just because I'm gonna grab some water. But this is a big break on this. This could push this to 6. I don't stop watching ACB, but ACB 545. Okay, I'll be right back. I didn't realize it was that late in the day because of how boring that price action was. Okay, this is definitely a point here in the session where there's some slight increased risk. So let's see, they definitely stalled. This is the stall at 3. What do you guys notice here? This actually stands out quite a bit. What do you guys notice here in terms of these calculated points in time and the ranges? And this is partially why I wanted them to break up over 64.10 before 3. Yeah, it makes the price action very tight and the range is smaller, so you can start seeing like even the decrease in range starts becoming a little bit smaller and tighter in range, which is the exact kind of PA I would expect with a stall before 3. Well, and they could also be trying to pin the close back to OR, right? Or within this neutral range. I would hope that they don't pin the neutral zone, but I mean, we'll see. There were some odds right here at 312. Again, they reduced there. And then some odds coming up here in the next 2 to 3 minutes. I feel like this is probably going to reach the point that they would either break down the structure fully, like all the way back to retest lows, because we still have some risk, obviously, after, hello, hi Ryan, and then, or the point that they decide that they want to sustain 64.03, 50, 75, and retract that 64.0625, 64.0775, basically. It's basically the sticks that failed, but it's also the 50% range. It's kind of where we're stuck. Does that make sense? So they're basically stuck at the midpoint of risk right here. Does that make sense? And they happen to be formed around the exact points of our 4-1, 4-3 sticks. And obviously getting back above, you know, the 10 mark, 1075, 11 is what we would need, but there's an increase in risk right here at 315, 16, 17. So you can already see that's the first trigger beneath that 64.0350, which is our 243 range. Pretty big time of day here for mid-structure breaks at 415, 16, 17, because this is where they're going to decide if they want to retest those lows and take us right back down to that 9698 retest with odds of, I think we said 93. We'll look in just a second. I just want to see how they react here, these are really important times of day. And this was the next point that they could actually start expanding the range a little bit more than just a 2 to 3 point range. In other words, I would think that they're either going to stick down back to lows here or try to break this back up. Need some sort of structure breaks here. I should have done a pull. I would say at a minimum it probably needs back over that 03 57.5 area. Look at the stick breaks on TLRY. Where would this put SPX? 36. That's a nice stick break. 7-8 lows on that stick too. Oh, this is like a mid-structure hold like this, like just beneath 6403.75 and 6403.50 and just above 6399. They're still leaving that risk on, but they didn't take out range. They'd have to do something like this because this is a pretty gross looking structure. They might be saving it for imbalance prints too. There were some odds at like 321, 324, 328. Kind of like a mid bear neutral hold at 0102. That's not really a great spot though. Above 03 would have been a bit better. We'll see here. There were some odds at 2-1 for this retest. I think if this 20 can get back over 0625, these odds right here during this period are probably pretty high, like between here and the imbalance prints during this time here. What do you guys think? Real quick. What do you guys think? Why is my throat so itchy? That's such a clean break on that. Alexis, do you see the break on the 478? And this flag break? That's the exact kind of price action you'd want to see at this spot here. So from here, then you can target that 505, 509, whatever those spots were, because there is definitely some overhead there, but this breaking annual range is pretty huge. And I think those spots were like... I don't remember exactly what time frame we looked at. I think it might have been some of these, like here. Yeah, like around here. Like I could see where you're coming from with those areas here, but I think it was more relative to them breaking this spot first. So like this is where it could bull flag into those ranges, if that makes sense. That's a really nice breakout on that. $492 to 505 would be the range break that could get. Maybe watch the 492 spot first. TLRY getting a really nice break over 90. You guys didn't vote. What do you guys think? You think that they can clear 64, 11, 10 by imbalance prints to negate some of this risk? I'd say if they can at least get back over there by 330, 336, they're going to be in a lot of risk this afternoon. Because holding this area is not really, it's not bad. It's not really great though. Like if we measured this off 9.6, like it's maybe okay, but there's some pressure here at 2425. And it's right back to that 0625, 0775, which I'm pretty sure is where it stalled, isn't it? Yeah, it is. This area here, these are calculated spots. And they did stall 0775. And they stalled it just before 3.2, which sucks. So they definitely are trying to limit this range a little bit. It's kind of funny too, because this one was a break off like that 420. Do you guys mind if I turn on the mic? I just want to hear Bernie and Keith on cannabis names. Curious what they think, especially with these ones breaking right here. I think Bernie's streaming right now, so they're kind of flatlining this. This is exactly why I didn't really want to stall in this area here. I think that's not really the best spot to stall after sustaining this area here, which is... What area is this here, this orange spot? You're basically playing with fire in this range here. Okay. Imbalance prints.
You grow here. That's a weed one too. They moved earlier.
B-tie. That high is 38 on B-tie.
Do you guys see the slight pressure within this range right here? Pretty much if they start stalling, they're basically stalling like right in between.
BJDX through the high day could get really go as it falls here. Anyway, something to watch here. BJDX.
There's sundial through the 2 spot. And SNDL. High of the day on sundial. SOS hit what? 93? No, 90.
This is the 7th bar on this, by the way. On this 1 minute. So if they want extension 7, 8, 9, 10, this would be the period. Yeah, still stuck. I do want it out of this box though. This would be a really shitty area to keep this stuck in.
BTAI 40, 640s on BTAI. Spiked at 644. That's the high of the day on BTAI.
Do you see that 7th bar break on this? That's pretty funny. 491 break on that MSOS. This is the expansion window for this thing between here and 336. If they want to try pushing this. Some overhead at like 505.
MSOS 492 on MSOS. I think MSOS is going to go a lot higher than this. A lot higher than this. That's what I'm thinking.
We're looking for 636 and 7 on this thing. If it can clear these ranges today. Especially since this is the flip date. And it has odds until the 19th. There's the 492 break. Yeah, it's still stuck. And getting super close to the 332, 336 period. So if they're going to come back and retest range breaks, it would likely be around this point in the day.
Get down 93 now. High of the day on MSOS. Stopped at 93.
Set these. Oops. This What do you guys think? Pretty shitty box to be stuck in the neutral zone, especially hovering like okay, there is something that stands out here to me. I'm not going to tell you guys what it is. Maybe you guys can see it. This actually looks a little bit better than it did back here. I know it doesn't really seem like it does, but there's something that stands out here. What is it? What do you guys think? Which can help the odds a little tiny bit. Where did they stall here? 493? Yeah, it's still not great, but they're trying to basically sustain above that orange box range, which again is basically like you're playing with fire, and that's how this area is supposed to feel, because you can basically come back and retest the bot. And every single time we're in an orange box range, the price action always feels like this. It's never failed, not once. It always feels like this when you're in this orange box range, when you're hovering between bear zone and neutral zone. Every single time it always feels like that. And usually it's where they end up keeping it stuck very close and keeping people on their toes, and then boom, out of nowhere they'll spike it either up or down, right? So based on how these sticks traded, it seems like they're trying to hold the line, but they're running out of time. So next, I'd say the next 3 to 6 minutes are pretty vital here in this thing trying to hold. Are you guys okay if I start cleaning some of this up? Trying to keep a clean chart. Maybe I'll just leave these on here though. Like this little box and the 4, 3, 4, 4. What's the time intervals here?
MSOS high of the day
31.
just hit 94.
So then they might just save this for end of day.
Oh.
Based on this.
Spinning out too. You don't have 850,000 shares each side anymore. Isn't that amazing?
We got MSOX.
You know, I know.
Big
It's
movie.
running. It's 3 times or 2 times, right?
Yep. So let's see. 2 times.
3 times, right?
2
Six.
2.
2 times. Up 62%.
Is there a 3 times? I don't think there is.
I don't think so.
Yeah, it's not really the best box to be in, but these were the calculated areas from Friday. I'm just gonna
JDX.
delete them.
Exactly.
Do you guys see the pressure here though to try getting out of this box at this point in time? I'd say especially between 336 and 346-ish. Like basically before the last 15-minute interval of the session. Still not really constructive price action though. The only thing is the slight hold over 01 and 02 here, but they're barely holding.
They did to BJDX. Take a look. Don't tell me people didn't get caught in that.
Oof.
Don't tell me that. telling me, oh, they all got out. A lot of people that went for that sleigh ride right there. What I make position trading, a little bit I make trading and day trading, and speed is a killer. Speed is a killer. Talking about that with Keith. Speed is a killer. You control the field.
I feel like if they pin it in this zone before CPI, that's definitely not a good thing. Like, we definitely don't want to be pinning in a bear zone before CPI, do you know what I mean? That could definitely imply some major volatility risk ahead. Pinning neutral zone would imply that they could probably take out highs or just retest them and then come back down, so it'd be like a two-directional price action, whereas bull zone implies that they could actually retest highs, take them out, and then maybe sustain. So zones are supposed to help you gauge future PA, and that's why they almost always take them to zone areas before releases. Isn't that so cool? You have to admit that that's a pretty cool theory that I made up. And I back-tested this a bunch. They almost always take it to a zone before releases like this. It's crazy. And today, what they're basically doing before the close here is they're battling bear neutral zones. They open in a bull neutral area, which is like right in between, so that they can test both sides. They tested upside,
BGDX popping back
64.32.
after the
Let me turn this off. And then they tested downside, but still held. And it's crazy because they have a little bit of room left on upside and they have a little bit of room on downside. They know exactly what they're doing here. They're keeping this basically neutralized. See if bulls can get some sort of a grip here into the close. What do you guys think? You think that bulls can try getting this back over that 077510 and try getting back at least to, I don't know if they can get this back to the bull zone, but at least back to 16, 15, 14, 19. It seems like odds are delayed till final 12 to 15 minutes of the day anyway, so no, you don't think so? Well, the thing is if they did, they could easily give like those types of sticks that just break it up, but and they do that when they want to save range to pin the close end of day. But them hovering this area here is definitely not a good spot to be before the last 15 minutes. Some of these odds are just after the bell for this too. Some nasty bear flags that could form if they don't hold this here. I put up a poll there just because these are the odds. 9-6 is off the report. 9-6, 9-3. Those are really big support spots for Monday ahead of CPI. So, and they did test 9-6. So we're definitely at risk if they take out that spot with a little bit more room. But I would prefer that they hold it, especially since that's 35 points from the highs. So try getting some votes there. Because if they're going to try holding the line here, they really have to start pushing price out of this orange box that I've highlighted here. This is the orange box range, by the way. It's this area here. Okay, this is usually around like 03, this box here. So they're playing with fire here, okay? Usually you're playing with fire until about 0375, 04, 05. So this kind of range here is usually a box range of that I like to call playing with fire that kind of starts to neutralize once you get closer to here. Okay, but this area here, basically. Okay, do you see that? And there were some odds around 4-5, 4-7, 4-8, 4-9 to try retracting out of this area. Otherwise, that low is still at risk of being retested, and that's where we could get our full ranges for the session today. We had risk all the way down to 8-1, 8-6 if they don't hold here between 9-3, 9-6. And they really have to start trying to retrace. This is the same time interval too, off here from 14. Okay, that's coming up. And 15 if we're measuring off here, off the 312. 29 minutes is, that's a 32. Off the 15, this is the 29-minute interval. There's better odds around here. I like 4-6, 4-7. That 4-7. I didn't mark these midpoints on this because I didn't want it to be too much, but I guess we could maybe look at those as like some midpoints for this afternoon. Stick down on at 345. This is such a critical point here for ES coming back to retest these lows or break structure back over 06, 07. So far it's definitely not holding. 4-7 had the highest odds. What did you guys vote? I didn't see. It's crazy that they take it to this box here before the close. Pre-CPI. So that's a 63.99 hold here. If they hold 63.99, 63.98, then that could help them avoid taking out and retesting that 9.6. But they would need really solid follow-through sticks here. Otherwise, that 9.6, 9.3 is still at risk until the session closes here today. I would say this is probably the max range for TLRY for real time today. Okay, only 12 minutes left for the session, guys. You can see the pressure here between 4.7, 4.8, 4.9, because this is essentially the point that they either want to try holding this zone area here above like the 9.9 mark, okay? Do you see this? Or if they're going to try breaking back into the bear zone here. This orange area is really the worst spot to be, by the way, before CPI. This box, it's not where you want to be. Let's reset this alert. MSOS back to that 478 after stalling there. Pretty crazy that they also saved this for the last 10 minutes of the day. $12.47 I think is Netflix target. This area here. $12.49 was that 35-minute interval, I'm pretty sure. So what do you guys think 350 is going to do off this 6398 hold, 6399 hold? You think they're going to retract back over 0375, 06, or you think they're going to take down that low of 96? Lots of pressure here into the close. They're like just barely holding this box. Take it down. 6396 being retested here at 350 after 48, 47, 49 stalled. We still had some risk down to that 9375, 9425 area, but the bigger downside risk was down to 8186. Specifically if they don't hold into the close here. And a lot of this was on that stall of 0775, 06. Also them trying to hold the line here, but no good structure breaks between 347 and 349. Is that the 9375? These are the targets from the weekly report on the short. These areas here. And I think we said from opening range, which is here. These would also be in alignment with a 22-point break. Yeah, this is 22 points here. So them failing here is pretty bad if they can't hold the line, because that's what's going to put that 32 to 34 point risk back to 8.2. Off highs, we said that they could push this 44 points, especially if they come back and fail this 34-point ratio. They did breach 33, 34 points here, which was bad. This is the 39-point ratio, so max range is, again, right at the bottom of the zone at 87.50. So this is a pretty big spot here because they still have some room down to this area here, okay? Those were max ranges, specifically if they failed this 9,650 in this 9,3 area. So in between here, there isn't really too much confluence. It's either they retract it back up or they finish filling that range down, which is basically the full zone retest. And there's 8 minutes to go. So the only thing that I could think of is if they hold the bottom of the zone at 8.7, they could try retracting this back at 354.55, which I think from today's open, because you have to remember from session open, that would be 34 points. Bottom of the zone from session open, guys, is the 34 point ratio, like right here at 8.8. From the actual real-time open, it's closer to here, but this would be like these areas are more like 29, 28, so 32 points is right around 8.4, 8.5, 8.2. The most support is in this area here. Yeah, that's also 34 from session open. Really nice short though on that, because there's only two odds, especially during this point, is they either try retracting it back up or they take it back to the bottom of the zone, because there was a neutralized point here and the range is about the same. So if they want to try saving this here, they'll try to hold. This is where they could try retracting this back up into the close. Yeah, it's bear zone hold, but it's also calculated today too, off open. 44 and 34 points is 8.7, 8.8 area. The turnaround would have to be at like the 354.55. Okay, so like these sticks here. Otherwise that 8.1, 8.2 is still at risk. I'd look to see if they close this one at annual range. I think we did pretty good on calculating the ranges for the session though. Especially on this short and where they stalled. 8.8 being tested here. So far 8.8 is the low, that's the bottom of the zone. 8.8, 8.7, 50, 8.6 is what's calculated here. And so far 5.5 not catching a stick. $350. Still keeping that risk on. Do you guys capture the most of the short on this? This was actually a very nice short if you were paying attention, because this area here is not really a good spot to be sitting in. We'll see if they can try. There's some odds after the bell at like 408. So they might try turning it around here into the close off 8.7, 8.8 if they don't want to take it all the way down to 8.1, 8.2, 8.3 area. And I would say that the pinnable spot would be our like 9.6 to 9.3 area. Does that make sense? Like this area here. This 9.375, 9.350, 9.4, like this area here. This would be the maybe the pinnable ranges you'd want it to try coming back to into the close to at least mitigate some of the risk that they have. Otherwise, it's going to leave this in play. From the weekly report, we had risk back to the 70s before CPI, but it just wouldn't really help odds in terms of getting the retest on the 12th and 13th. So let's see, where do you guys think they're going to pin the close? You think they're going to give us some crazy end of day sticks here? Odds were till 4 today, so basically runs right until 4. What do you guys think? I figured they could at least try getting back and testing 9.6. If they do that before 3:59, then there's maybe some odds they could even try that 6402, 0375 area. I feel like above 0708 might be hard, but we'll see. And then there's that window after the bell here. But I thought that maybe they could try getting back to this 9.6, maybe 9.8. I don't know. We'll see. 9.9. But I was wanting them to at least try getting back here. Like, that would help a little bit. What time is it? So they're trying 9.350 here, 9.4. That's good. Oops. I think the 9.450 is off OR. So I don't think I'm wrong about this 356 turnaround the last few minutes back to 9.6. Maybe 9.8. I thought maybe max would be like here. I didn't really think that they could even get it back there for 5.9. They do have odds at 4 though, so I guess we'll see. But I just wanted them to at least try getting the bear zone filled, basically, like hold 8.8 and retest 9.9. That's still a good end of day SPX trade though. On the reversal back up, 359 trying to break here into the close back over 9.9. $63.9. Oh wow, they actually are going to try the 0201 at 5.9. I didn't know if they could or couldn't. That's kind of what I was targeting for max range for real time. And then 4 o'clock to be the stick break that tries taking out 06, 07, 08. Really nice break here into the close. This gives that 6401, guys, because that was my max, gives odds for that 64, 05, 06, 10 area between 4 and 4:08 p.m. because there were some odds after the bell, but they were between 4 and 4:08. So if they're going to try retracing this back up, it's going to be after the close. So a really nice play though on both ends, if you think about that. Like, I know it wasn't really the most ideal, but... And then TLRY getting a good move. This one I think closed just beneath. I am holding the stock on this. I know wheat stocks are usually pretty hard to hold, but I don't know, I like that setup. Any questions before I sign off for the day, guys? Or are you guys all good on your end? So they brought it right back to that orange box. At least they brought it back over 9.9. That's good. 6,400 pin for 359. It's not great, but it's better than pinning down here. Hopefully they can pin above 06, 07. Maybe at least reset the neutral conditions. Exactly what they are from the report. This area here, it's all in the report. Because we already tested 3.2.